Everybody. This is the TAC meeting, and we'll go ahead and begin with a roll call and certification of a quorum. Janice.
All right. Town of Ashland, Miss Amos. I know that we have her on the Zoom, but she has not been able to move over yet. Nora, I will mark you as present. Charles City County Vice Chair Mitchell.
Yes, I'm present.
Miss Russell. Chesterfield County, Miss Smith.
Miss Russell no longer works here.
Okay. Well, I wasn't aware of that. I will update my list. Thank you. Chesterfield, Miss Smith.
Here.
Miss Walker. Goochland County, Mr. Goyne.
Here.
Mr. Coleman. Hanover County, Chair Vidunez.
Here.
Mr. Hardman. Henrico County, Miss Smidler.
Here.
Mr. Yor. New Kent County, Miss Inman.
Here. Good morning.
Good morning. Miss Leduc. Powhatan County, Mr. Chardine. City of Richmond, Miss Clark. Capital Region Airport Commission, Mr. Rutledge. DRPT, Miss Dubinsky. Mr. Wagner. GRTC, Miss Robinson.
Here. Good morning.
Thank you. Good morning. Mr. Robinson. Plan RVA, Mr. Bushing.
Here.
Mr. Ariel. RMTA, Miss Simmons. Ride Finders, Mr. O'Keefe.
Here.
VDOT, Miss Rhodes. And Miss Mueller. That concludes the roll call for attendance. We do have a quorum, and I believe we have a couple other people. I'll move over now and we'll mark them as present as well.
Very well. Thank you for that. Moving on to item number 3. This would be consideration of amendments to the agenda. Does anybody have an amendment to today's agenda? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to item 4, which would be approval of the March 12th, 2024 meeting minutes. They can be found on page 4 of your agenda package. Are there any changes, amendments to the meeting minutes as drafted? Okay, I think we need a motion and a second, and then we'll have a voice vote.
This is Austin. I'll move for approval.
John O'Keefe.
Second.
Okay, I think we have Austin with the motion, John with the second. So we can do this by voice vote. So all in favor of approval of the meeting minutes, say aye.
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 Any abstentions or any opposition? Okay, passes unanimously. Next on the agenda is item 5, which is opportunity for the public to speak. Do we have anybody in the queue that would like to speak?
We haven't received any requests.
Okay. Moving right along. This would be item 6, TAC Chairman's report. I don't have anything to report at this time. So we'll kind of get into the meat of the agenda. And Frank, are you going to be doing this item? The Regional Public Transportation Plan update?
That is correct. Yeah.
Okay, so the floor is yours.
Sure. All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Let me go ahead and share my screen real quick. Kindly let me know if you can see it.
Yes, I can see it.
All right. Now I'm going to presentation mode. All right. So good morning, everyone. I know I shared this with, I think, almost everyone here yesterday, but I'd like to go over it here for the TPO TAC. This is an update of GRTC's FY25 Regional Public Transportation Plan. So as we all know that the state legislation directs GRTC to develop a regional public transportation plan, and this is something that has to be done in collaboration with the RRTPO. It is also an annual requirement that helps GRTC identify plans on how it intends to spend its CVTA funds in upcoming fiscal years. So this morning, my objectives here are pretty much straightforward. One is to provide you an update on the service improvements that happen in FY25. FY24, and then also provide an update on service plans and priorities for FY25. And then lastly, I will take the time to let this group know how GRTC intends to spend its CVTA funds for FY25. And in the end, our recommendation, or GRTC's recommendation, will be for this group to support its FY25 Regional Public Transportation Plan. So this is just a high-level overview of the FY24 service improvements. We were able to restore the pulse to its pre-pandemic level. On Route 1A, we extended that to Westchester Commons, and then the 1A also saw headway improvement to 30 minutes. Route 19, the 19 appears here twice because of how the changes on it were funded. So the extension of the route into Goochland County was cost neutral, but the span and headway improvements were funded with the I-64 funds. Route 93 was taken out of service, and we also had a chance to implement 4 micro transit zones, all in FY24. For FY25, these are the priorities that we have listed. For Route 1, we are looking at extending service to the J. Sargent Reynolds Community College, as well as the Virginia Center Commons. And then on Route 7A and 77B, there will be both routing and headway changes to provide a more direct service to the Richmond International Airport. We are also looking at implementing these 3 different micro transit zones in FY25. For Route 5, what we are looking at doing is extending the route all the way to the University of Richmond, and the Route 5 will eventually replace the Route 77. So the Route 5 will do the same span and headway as the 77 is currently doing. And for Route 50, what we're trying to do is to improve the span and then the headway on that. For Route 5 and 50, we haven't budgeted for it yet. We're still trying to figure out how we will fund that. But if we don't find any sort of funding for within the FY 2025, what is likely to happen is that we will probably push this into FY 26. All right, so our regional public transportation plan for FY25 addresses these number of priorities. The first one is pretty much to ensure that we ensure the stability and maintenance of operations on the system, just as we have it now. We don't want to decrease service to any level. We just want to be where we are now. We also want to prioritize capital requirements to ensure that our assets are in good state. We also want to continue prioritizing the piloting of micro transit in FY 2025. We are looking at also advancing planning studies for both operational and capital assets to be able to help us make informed decisions going forward. And then we will continue to leave room for expansion as well as any sort of creative ideas that might crop up in FY25. So in the end, what we're asking of this group is to help us put the remainder of FY24 as well as the projected FY25 funds from the CBTA into a restricted reserve. So just a quick or a brief overview of what we received in FY25, in FY24, and how we spent it, and how much of it we have left. So for FY24, the CBTA, in CBTA funds, we received 30.8 million, and we used about 25.5 of it, and we have about 5.3 remaining. So what we're asking is that this group helps us kind of put this away into a restricted reserve for future use. And for FY25, we have projected to receive about 32.2 million. And because we're not going to be using this to fund anything in FY25, what we want to do is to be able to put this away also for future use, right? So the rest of the presentation, just shows details of all the FY25 service priorities that I have shared with you. Anyone that is interested in that can kind of take a look at that and let us know if there are any questions going forward. But I think that is pretty much what I came out here this morning to share with you. So, Mr. Chair, that will be the end of my presentation, and I'm open to answering any questions at this time.
Okay, thank you, Frank, for the presentation. I have a question, but I'll let the committee go first. Does anybody have any questions? So, Frank, maybe, okay, Amy?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that yesterday when you were giving the presentation for the CBTA TAC. So you're saying that the fiscal year 25, 32 million, you're wanting to save that money? You're wanting to,
right.
why, for what?
Well,
I mean, you have service needs.
yeah, but we did not spend the FY24 money. We have all of that. So that is what we're going to use to fund FY25 service priorities.
So the Route 5 that needs budgeting, are you going to fund that?
Yeah, we are, like I said, we are trying to figure out how to fund that. Even though we have money sitting, we are trying to figure out if we can fund that not using CVTA money, but just trying to find a different way of finding money to fund that.
Is the Route 5 the orbital? That was
I'm not sure of that.
okay.
Yeah, I'm still
If I
trying to get
can, the
Yeah,
Route
sure.
20 is the orbital and the Route 5 is carry and main.
Oh, right. So why wouldn't that get funded?
No, we're not saying it's not. We are finding ways of trying to fund that internally. We're just not looking at using CVTA funds for that.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, so I was kind of along the same lines of Amy's inquiry. So just to kind of recap, it looks like there's somewhere in the neighborhood of about 37 million that's available. That's kind of an unusual
Right.
situation for a transit agency to be in.
Right. I agree.
So but the ask for this group then is to assist you all with identifying potential projects or enhancements to the system. Is that correct?
The ask of the group is to help us, just to be able to reserve this money that we have into a restricted place where we can come back to that in the future to use.
Right. So okay.
Because
So
sorry, go ahead.
Well, so this is an action item, and excuse me if I'm not
Right.
fully prepared, but what is the specific request today?
It's pretty much helping us save all the remainder that we have from FY 24, as well as what we are projected to get in FY 2025, put away for future use.
If I can jump
Yeah.
in, Mr. Chairman, the ask, since we're on the TPO side of the house, the ask would be a finding from the TAC that GRTC has consulted with the TPO on these priorities. So that's kind of our role on the TPO side, is that we help develop the regional priorities. And then with that next tranche, that 37 million that we were talking about for next fiscal year, we'll be obviously reconvening the public transportation work group to help work through that in coordination with the rural study that'll be going on. So looking at the bigger picture for the region. So that would be the ask, that this group, basically, we're trying to make that finding that we have been presented, the TAC has seen this and supports it from the TPO framework standpoint.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful. Amy, and then
I think
Dorona.
I think Dorona might have been first.
Okay, I apologize, Dorona.
That's
I missed
okay.
that. Dorona, and then Amy.
Thank you, Joe and Mr. Chair and Amy. Yeah, I was just gonna add some points of clarity here too. And from the CVTA point, CVTA for the GRTC's 15% of the regional dollars has to, in coordination with the TPO, recommend approval of the annual plan. And so in previous years, we have only really been doing maintenance of effort. And you can remember probably 3 or 4 years ago, probably 3, we had the regional transit where we went through routes that would be improved, and they had a huge capital cost to it. So I think GRTC is doing a great job in being able to bring what they can bring online, which has been a central focus of some of the micro transit and then some of the demo routes that have been able to be funded. And I think we're going to have, like Miles said, a great opportunity to really relook at that large savings, because we know, again, any one-time investment is then going to be transposed into operating cost, and then that money won't be available anymore once we sustain it. So I think we're doing a great job in trying to plan and see how we can phase in increased services through a collaborative effort, based on we have so much interest and so many dollars from localities going to GRTC. So I think, Joe, you've asked very good questions from the TPO side as we look how those integrate, because we also know we have the rural effort that is underway that will probably feed into the public working group, and what are some of the expectations from GRTC with those dollars, I think specifically CVTA dollars. So anyway, I just wanted to add those points being on both sides of the CVTA, and then here at the TPO in regard to what the ask is. And again, I think that they've done a great job, and they have included something more than maintenance and effort that we haven't seen in the past, as robust as it is this go round. So I do applaud that and hope that it'll be even better next year. Thank you.
Right. Thank you for putting that into context. Amy, and then.
Okay, that was helpful. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That was helpful. So I guess I do, Frank, I have a question. You're saying you're looking for ways to fund the Route 5, the Carytown route.
Right.
So I guess where's the local funding? Was the CVTA money supplanting the local funding, or what happened with the local funding for the Route 5? And is that to restore that service, or because I think there is service currently on the Carytown route, or is this to increase the frequency? What you're saying is not funded.
The Route 5, give me a sec just to see what the details are.
I'm just curious. And then the other question I had was the Westchester Commons. You're extending the Route 1 to Westchester Commons?
Correct.
Okay. And is that going to be what frequency?
The details are in the slides. I'll just have to give me a sec.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's gonna be 15 minutes.
Oh, excellent. And
Yeah.
then, so then the Powhatan microtransit will feed into the Westchester Commons, correct?
That is what we're trying to do, but just a quick one, just a clarification. So for the Route 1 for weekday peak and midday service is gonna be 15 minutes, and then the night service is gonna be 30. And
Okay.
then for Saturdays, peak and midday will still be 15, and night is it's gonna be 30, and then for Sundays, it will all be 30 across board.
All right, excellent.
Yeah.
That's very good.
Thanks.
Good job.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, that is what we look at doing.
All right, okay. Well, I still am curious about the Route 5. I don't,
Yeah.
if the CBTA money supplanted or the local funding has not been there to support that, that's,
Yeah, that is a question that I have to, take up and ask. But
okay.
I think that the conversation has been that there are other forms of, money available somewhere, but we're just trying to figure out, where to pull the money from to be able to fund that. Yeah,
Okay. All right,
Yeah.
great. Thank you so much. Good job. Really good job. Thank you.
thanks.
Okay, Barb.
So regarding the use of the previous year's funding for the current year, when CBTA was established, GRTC banked the money that was collected that initial year and has been budgeting and, using this as a financial tool or fiscal management practice to use the previous year's money to fund the transportation plan that we're looking at today, the elements of that in the upcoming year. So the benefit of that is it's a stable, known amount of money. I think sometimes with those federal sources, they come in at odd times and don't necessarily match up with the fiscal year for transit agencies. So having this stability, I think, is a really good practice financially.
Okay, makes sense. Dorona.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just quickly on the Route 5 from just the city's knowledge, and with GRTC saying, looking for the funds, we're definitely not, sir, planning any dollars when it comes to 5. 5 has some key elements to it. It has like some of the advertising along that route. It has coordination with VCU along that route, and other things in which we're ensuring that the dollars are supporting that and the needs that lie around that core route. So I do again applaud them in that, not just looking on a fallback of CVTA dollars to do things, but really looking at the core of what the needs are around the system and how best to coordinate getting dollars for GRTC. So again, yeah, I think Adrian probably could explain all of this better. But thanks again. And I, Mr. Chair, would move that we approve or recommend for approval by the policy board this regional plan for FY25 transit plan.
Second,
I didn't catch that. Who was the second?
Gary.
Gary, okay. All right. All right, let's do a roll call vote for this one. Oh, first, is there any further discussion? Okay, let's do a roll call for this, please.
Okay, Miss Amos,
Aye.
Mr. Mitchell,
Aye.
Miss Smith,
Aye.
Mr. Goin,
Aye.
Chair Vadunez,
Aye.
Miss Smidler. Aye. Miss Inman,
Hi.
Miss Clark,
Aye.
Miss Robinson, Mr. Bushing,
Aye.
Mr. O'Keefe,
Aye.
and Miss Rhodes.
Aye.
Thank you. That motion carries.
And thank you, Frank, for that presentation. Switching gears, we're gonna Miles is gonna review the FY25 UWP or UPWP. So Miles, floor is yours.
And thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this is our draft fiscal year 25 Unified Planning Work Program. Just as a reminder, the UPWP is our agency budget and work plan for the fiscal year. Covers a single fiscal year. The funding generally comes from PL funds on the FHWA side, 5303 funds on the FDA side, with the state and Plan RVA providing the match. And then it lays out our major regional priorities and our deliverables for the upcoming fiscal year. If you've had a chance to look through the document, there's a few changes to the document from our previous years. One big thing, we included the Connect RVA vision, just sort of as the overarching vision why we're doing everything that we're doing. We shifted to a landscape format instead of portrait. I know this seems minor, but it's actually in line with all of our other major planning documents, our LRTP, the TIP. It also matches how the region looks. So that's kind of a formatting change that's consistent with the direction we've headed as an agency. We've added an extended introduction to the region and the TPO at the front, and that's the same introduction we use in the LRTP and the TIP. So again, just creating that consistency across planning documents. And then we added a slightly longer discussion of administrative modifications versus amendments. So this is something that we added a year or two ago to be able to do administrative changes to the UPWP without going all the way back through the policy board. So these are like the way it's set up. It's minor changes where, like say under the 7200 bucket, we're shifting money between 7210 and 7220 and just making small adjustments between the subtasks. So this just was an attempt to clarify that language a little bit more and lay out very clearly what is a full amendment that goes to the board and what things we can handle at the staff level. So as I mentioned, this document really lays out our priorities and our deliverables for the year. The planning priorities, the first three are largely the same ones that have been in the UPWP. So completing our federal certification recommendations. So as you'll remember, we had several recommendations that were in there. The ones that haven't been completed yet are still included as the list as priorities for us to work on as part of our work program. Making progress on the federal planning emphasis areas. So this is looking at the 2021 planning emphasis areas and continuing to support those. And I can go into these in more detail in the document if anyone wants to see them. And then continuing our efforts from previous fiscal years. So supporting the CVTA, BRT expansion, fall line support, our public engagement efforts, kind of continuing those efforts that are taking a multi-year span. For fiscal year 25, we have three specific focus areas that we've narrowed in on. The first is that renewed safety focus. So if you'll recall back in the winter, the TAC had several discussions about setting annual safety targets. The policy board followed TAC's recommendation and set more aggressive safety targets. So what we're looking to do is build on that to reestablish our Vision Zero work group or regional safety work group and look at the role that the region can play in promoting safety as opposed to the localities, and also look at opportunities for updating and implementing our regional safety plan. So however we can support you guys to plan for safer streets, that's how we want to be involved. So this is really the focus would be getting that work group back together to help kind of figure out the next steps, and then also look at implementation options. 2050 long range transportation plan. If you were at the forum, you saw that was our soft kickoff for the 2050 plan. We are already starting the scoping process for that, but really our timeline will be from July 1, beginning of the fiscal year, for the next 2 years. So our next one is due in 2026 in October. So that is our time frame. It takes us that 2-year period to get the plan developed. So we're really ready to move full speed ahead. And one of the cool things is we'll be building on the scenario planning effort that's been underway for the past 18 months. So that gives us a whole bunch of new measures that we can look at in evaluating projects and our slate of investments. It also gives us a variety of futures that we can look at rather than just assuming one future. So Haven't figured out exactly what that all looks like, but that's part of what's going into this effort. And then the third one, and we've talked about this in the last presentation as well, as the rural public transportation study. You all have seen the draft scope. Basically, the idea here is to identify opportunities to provide or enhance public transportation service in our more rural localities that will also integrate with the GRTC network in the more urbanized portion of the region. So really creating a consistent, comprehensive network across the region so everyone can get where they need to go. So those are our planning priorities. We floated these through the executive committee with the policy board last month. And then what I want to do is just go quickly through each of the big buckets. So if you've looked at the UPWP before, it's organized into 4 big buckets, and each of those has a couple subtasks under it. So the first one is the 7100 bucket. So this is our program support and administration task. It covers basically everything administrative, the meetings like what we're holding right now, all of our coordination with our state and federal partners, our budget development. One of the new things that we've done this year is move our contingency funding line item up into this bucket. If you've looked at the budget line items, there's nothing in there right now. We have $400 in PL roughly remaining, but we're waiting on updated budget on 5303, and we want to reflect that in that contingency line item. And rather than put a number in there that wasn't going to be right, we just zeroed it out and waited until we got those numbers. So that's what we're hoping to do before we take this to the policy board, is get that finalized. The other thing, and the reason that we moved it, is really as a fiscal control. So with the adoption of the administrative amendment process, the administrative modifications, staff is able to move funding between the sub buckets. But what this does is ensure that everything in 7100 can't be moved out, so that contingency funding can't go to support a new portion of the rural study and increase the budget there, or it can't go to any of those other projects that would require policy board action. So it's just an idea that the board should have the say of how we redistribute those funds if we move them to another project. Plan deliverables under this item, it's the next UPWP, fiscal year 26, and obviously management of the current one, all of our monthly meetings, agendas, everything, and then the general program management and oversight. The total budget right now is $404,106. The second large bucket or task is 7200. This is our equity outreach and comprehensive planning. So this covers all of our public engagement efforts. So that's one piece of this. It also includes all of our integration with other regional planning efforts. So non-TPO transportation plans where we're supporting like STAR studies, AMP, anything like that. But also non-transportation planning. So housing, economic development, environmental planning, where it ties back into transportation. This is really where we have the ability to work and coordinate regional efforts so that they all tie together and work nicely. It also supports Plan RVA's leadership in some national associations like AMPO, which is the Association of MPOs. And we actually have staff who've previously been on the policy committee, and we still have staff on the technical committee there, so helping to shape national policy around transportation. Again, a shift here. The 7300 bucket previously had our resilience planning. We've moved that up into 7200 because it is more of, environment resilience is broader than transportation. So what we're trying to do is align our transportation efforts with broader work in the environmental space and resilience space. So it was more like housing or economic development than it was like the other areas under 7300. So a shift in which bucket it falls under. So some of the big deliverables, obviously all of our general engagement and outreach efforts would fall under this. We're planning to update our Title VI plan. One of the commitments that we made was that we would review and update that plan every 3 years. So we're looking to update that plan. Publishing our annual public engagement report. So every July, we put out a report of how we've done in public engagement, how many people have responded, how many comments we've received. Another big thing is we're supporting a green infrastructure plan update for the region. So we have one from like a decade ago. And so that needs a refresh, but that basically serves as the foundation for the TPO's environmental layer. So when we do the project evaluations and we're buffering projects and looking at wetlands and all of those areas, that comes through this process. And then obviously supporting our work in housing and a comprehensive economic development strategy, making sure that everything that we're doing is lining up with transportation so that we're consistent across all of our regional plans. So the total budget for this side of things is $768,000. The next bucket is our 7,300 bucket, which is the long-range transportation planning. So this is obviously the long-range plan itself, the travel demand model, which supports it, but then also our modal focus areas. So active transportation, transit and passenger rail, and then freight and intermodal planning, which again, this is moving it up from 7,400 to reflect that this is a long-range planning effort as well. So each of these have their own key plan. So the active transportation has our bike ped plan, we have a transit vision plan, and we have an intermodal plan. So each of those have their own plans that feed into the LRTP. So some of the key deliverables for this program, and this is definitely by far the largest piece of our program. So we'll be in year one of the 2-year 2050 long-range plan development. Bike ped RVA, which is our bicycle and pedestrian plan. What we're trying to get onto is an every other year update cycle where we talk with the localities, figure out what your updated most recent planning and project efforts are, and get those into the plan and incorporate them. The goal would be that then we can also have those in place for future funding cycles, but also for building into the LRTP as needed. And as part of that, we're also looking to refine the spines and spurs network. We've had a lot of discussions at the CVTA on the wayfinding side of what counts as a spur, what should we actually be signing, what is a safe route. So part of this effort would be trying to work out some of those definitions at the planning level so we can have a clear network of what are the regional spines and spurs, and then what are the other facilities that are tying into those networks. The next piece is, again, on the bike ped side, but identifying and prioritizing last mile to transit bike ped network improvements. So looking at our transit system, where we're looking for expansion, and looking at where we have sidewalk gaps, where we have improved street crossing improvements, basically trying to provide access to these investments. So if we're investing in improving the transit network, we should be investing in getting people to those locations as well. And again, this is trying to feed into the LRTP. Last mile active transportation connections are a regional project in the way they've been defined in the 2045 plan. We're expecting that to continue moving forward. So we want to make sure we have those actually identified so we have potential projects to pull into the plan. The rural public transportation study, that is a huge effort on the transit side. One thing I will note is we are going to be pursuing the FTA waiver for the local match on that project. So that is included and reflected in the budget. And then the last two that we have on here are on the transit side, or on the freight side, excuse me. If you haven't met Dorian yet, we have a new planner focusing on our freight program. And a few of the efforts that we'll be undertaking over the next year include looking at developing freight corridor profiles and commodity flow data, and then also updating an inventory of rail crossings with a focus on freight impacts and safety. So trying to get some of the basic data in place for building toward an update of our intermodal plan. And the total budget for this is $1,782,061. And then that brings us to the last bucket. So the last one that we have is 7,400, which is our short range planning program. So this is the financial planning and programming, and also our performance measures. It would also include our safety program as an extension of our target setting. So some of the plan deliverables on this side, one of the things we've talked about is updating the project selection and allocation framework. So similar to the effort that's underway on the CVTA side, going through that this summer with the TPO. Obviously completing our fiscal year 26 to 31 allocation process for next year, processing all of our monthly tip amendments. And then the last two are really on the performance side. So reestablishing our Vision Zero or safety work group and identifying that regional role in implementing the safety vision and plans. And then updating our congestion management process. So this is, again, building into the LRTP, but going back through and analyzing the current bottlenecks, reliability issues, safety delays. So basically trying to update that data set. So that just feeds into the LRTP. I think one of the themes across a lot of what we're doing is a lot of these data sets and deliverables that we're working on are updates, which would then feed into the LRTP. So we're trying to get these completed so that they're ready for year 2 when we're actually starting to look at the projects and priorities. So the total budget for the short range planning is $205,000. So that's the overview. The ask today is for TAC to review and recommend approval, subject to the following revisions. Obviously, we have to finalize the contingency budget. So that would be something that we would revise before it goes to the policy board. The other thing is we've received a list of GRTC projects that they're planning to undertake in fiscal year 25. And if you'll recall, in the fall, we created a new section in the UPWP to reflect the Reconnect Jackson Ward project because it was required to be in the UPWP rather than in the TIP. We just want to add those GRTC projects in here as well as other major regional planning efforts that are underway. A lot of those are ones you're already thinking of, downtown transfer, the BRT expansions and NEPA process. It's projects everyone's already aware of, but we just want to reflect them in the plan as well. So that's the brief overview. I'm happy to pull up the document. We can look at anything in more detail, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Excuse me. All right. Thank you, Miles. That was great. Does anybody have any questions for Miles concerning any of this? Okay. Seeing no questions, no discussion, let's do a roll call vote on this. I want to add one thing, Miles, because I do appreciate your formatting changes. I'm big on format and appearance and all that. And I was pleased to see that you have left only justify in the document. It's a lot easier to read. Studies have shown. So I like that.
Noted.
All right. All right. Okay, Janice, please call the roll.
I'm sorry, I didn't get a motion or a second.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Do we have a motion?
I'll move to approve. Gary.
So,
Gary?
second, Diana.
All right. Dorona with the second. Is there any further discussion on this item? Okay. Seeing none, Janice, would you call the roll?
Yes, sir. Miss Amos,
Aye.
Mr. Mitchell,
Aye.
Miss Smith,
Aye.
Mr. Goin,
Aye.
Chair Vadunez,
Aye.
Miss Smidler,
Aye.
Miss Inman,
Aye.
Miss Clark,
Aye.
Miss Robinson,
Aye.
Mr. Bushing,
Aye.
Mr. O'Keefe,
Aye.
and Miss Rhodes.
Aye.
Thank you. That motion carries.
Okay. Excellent. Okay, we're moving on to item 9, and we're going to run through the transportation agency updates, and Tiffany will get us started, followed by the GRTC update.
Excellent. Good morning. Can everyone hear me okay? I'm trying out a new webcam in the office.
Loud and clear for me.
All right, so I have a few items. Most notable is that related to the UPWP, I do have final allocations for our fiscal year 25-5303. So Miles, I'll be sending that this afternoon. The full year apportionment actually just came out yesterday, so we were trying to crunch those numbers. Also, remind me to have an offline discussion with you to make sure we can address your local waiver request for 5303. But related to my actual agency update, so I have a couple of marketing campaigns I wanted to highlight. I believe last month I did mention about our Connecting Commuters campaign, and it started in March. Through mid-May, we're doing this campaign to encourage all of the commuters throughout Virginia to explore public transit options. We also are trying to advocate for use of our Connecting VA app, which is our statewide ride matching app that we have available. There's rider rewards and incentives to be able to log how you're using public transit or other transit options throughout the state. So we have some information. There's also some promotional tools that are available if you wanted to promote that. Another note is that we have a Virginia trip planner that we have available on our Connecting VA website. So if you're looking for human service providers or just ways to be able to travel, especially for those loved ones who may not have the ability to navigate through some of the systems, our trip planner is also a great tool to be able to kind of see what resources are available for them. The other campaign that we just launched this week is our Creating Connections for the Long Haul. So this one is a little bit more focused on freight rail in Virginia. So we're trying to raise awareness about how it's efficient, it's sustainable, the economic advantages that freight rail brings to the state, as well as some of our programs that we have that support freight rail, in particular, some of our grant programs. So there's information on that as well on connectingva.org, which is our website for all these marketing campaigns. Besides that, I just wanted to mention again about the notice of funding opportunities that are available. This is really mostly related to our transit agencies and localities that are partnering with them, but there is the low or no emission grant program, as well as our bus and bus facilities grant program through FTA. Those applications are due April 25th. And if there is any interest about a letter of support or technical assistance, please reach out as soon as possible so that we can provide that for you. Last thing is that, as always, we're kind of talking about buses and kind of electrification. I do want to make mention that the joint office under the National Renewable Energy Laboratory, or NREL, they have a rolling program that's called their Clean Bus Planning Awards that help with free technical assistance for any kind of bus electrification plans. This is available for both public transit agencies as well as school bus fleet operators. So we just wanted to promote that as kind of another resource. It's just per submission. So if you're thinking about that and you don't want to wait until December for our next grant cycle, that may be an option if you're thinking about electrification. And that's all I have for my update.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you for that update. GRTC.
Hey, this is Corey Robinson. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, great. I will be doing the agency update. So GRTC saw some changes in March that will allow for continued improvement of service over the near and long term. A quick follow-up on this month of microtransit, GRTC launched 3 new zones of Link microtransit. Link has already proven to be especially popular in the town of Ashland. More adjustments were made to Link's future as GRTC moves forward on establishing Link as a separate division, and moved closer to finalizing the Sandston Elko zone that will launch in June, and that will complete our microtransit pilot service area. On another note, GRTC continues to take delivery of new but not yet in service 40-foot CNG buses that will allow for a full fleet transition off of diesel. And GRTC began applying for grants to perform the necessary facility upgrades for the articulated buses that are being procured to provide increased capacity to the Pulse. There was lots of Pulse-specific news in March as well. GRTC officially kicked off phase 2 of the North-South BRT project with Kimley Horn as the consulting team, while at the same time winning a $750,000 grant from the FTA for separate TOD funding along the North-South corridor that will allow GRTC in the city to get a head start on a transformative approach to housing and development along the second Pulse corridor. And finally, it's GRTC's first year participating in the American Bus Benchmarking Group, ABBG, their annual customer satisfaction survey. So we encourage everyone to go online to our website and take the survey. And that concludes my agency update for this month. I can take any questions if you have any.
Okay. No questions for Corey. Thanks, Corey. And we're going to move on to John. With Ride Finders for his update.
All right, thank you. I'll be providing the agency update for Ride Finders. It was another busy month for Ride Finders. We attended the great event at the Chamber RVA Plan RVA Transportation Forum, as well as the microtransit ribbon cutting, the event there in Ashland. We've been assisting GRTC with outreach and delivering schedules along the 1A extension, as well as outreach to employers in the new Ashland microtransit zones. We did provide some van pool data to Kimberly Horn to assist them with their traffic cap strategic plan. We've met with Woodruff Solutions to discuss DRPT's task order to increase van pool formations and increase riderships. I know Barb will be happy to hear that again, we did start 2 new van pools in the Chesterfield area, one from Chester to Fort Belvoir and another from Chester to DC. We completed the 3rd annual Caring Commute Challenge, which was a month-long challenge, and it was encouraging people to show the planet and the community some love by recording their green trips. We had some great results from that included 1,141 transit trips recorded, 97,537 reduced VMTs, 587 carpool trips recorded, and 414 van pool trips recorded, which was about $65,315 in months saved for that. We're continuing to promote our Kickstart Your Carpool pilot program that started 2 new carpools and 7 existing carpools where they're providing their data. We're definitely seeing the uptick, as I said, in carpool trips being recorded, with 662 recorded carpool trips in March with 27 new participants. And we launched the March Made Challenge, which is a 2-week carpool and van pool challenge that capitalizes obviously on the March Madness that just ended last night to celebrate carpool and van poolers and encourage them to record their trips. And that is my agency update. I see Barb may have a question, and I'll be glad to answer any other questions.
I just wanted to mention how Ride Finders really helped us out recently. We were in the throes of smart scale and we're really stretched thin staff-wise, but wanted to get information out on the 1A extension and kind of felt like there was a time element to that we didn't want to wait. And Brigitte and Sharika hit the pavement and went out and distributed timetables and posters and flyers to businesses and just educated folks on the corridor about the new local service on Route 60 and got a lot of positive feedback from folks. So, you know, that was a huge, huge help to us, and we really, really appreciate it.
Thank you, Barb.
Okay, John, appreciate that. Sarah, last but not least, with the VDOT update.
Good morning, everyone. Just double checking you all can hear me.
I can.
Okay, awesome. Thanks. Okay, the next CTB meeting will be April 16th. We are expecting after that meeting that we'll have some insight into final TAP selections within the TA process. We are in the at-large member review and selection period, and that should end mid-April, and we should have final selections known pretty soon. After the April 16th CTB meeting, we are expecting final revenue share numbers to be provided to districts. So we will have an update on that information as well. 6-year improvement program public hearing that is scheduled for April 18th here in the district. More to come on that if you haven't already received the invite information. And then finally, Smart Scale Round 6. Here's where we shook out. The district, district-wide, we received 79 pre-applications. That's representative of 24% of the statewide pre-applications. So it's a pretty significant chunk in the Richmond district. Upcoming milestones, we will have district review, district screening of pre-applications will be complete by April 30th. Central office review is completed by May 24th. And then June 1st, full applications will open. July 15th is just hammer that date home. It is when all readiness documentation is required to be provided in the applications, and then final submission deadline is August 1st. End of next week, if you have an application with a risk issue or a concern that can range anything from scope alignment, making sure your features, your description, and your sketch line up, or could be a VTrans need, could be your sketch doesn't meet standard. You're going to start seeing those notations coming in. We hope to document them in the portal via the comments process. And so we'll keep you posted on that. We may also reach out if we have a readiness risk concern for any of the Gate 2 readiness issues, which are currently under review. And so just start to expect some feedback from us with regard to your applications and where we are in the process. And that's it from me. Thank you.
Okay. Questions? Okay. Item 10, I'll just simply draw your attention to a link in the agenda to the Plan RDA newsletter. Item 11, do any TAC members care to make any comments at this time or have any news to share?
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Dorona.
Yep, Diana here. Just wanted to thank the TPO staff that helped GRTC and the city apply for the TOD planning grant, which we did receive in the amount of $750,000 for the North-South BRT. So just thank you, and looking forward to seeing what we do with the Fall Line Trail grants, but great coordination and effort being shown with the TPO, and the locality needs is really awesome. Thank you.
Okay. Nora, do you have something to share?
I do, Joe. I just again want to say a big thanks to everyone who came out to our Link Microtransit launch for Ashland and Hanover. It was a great event, and I really appreciated all the support. I'm excited to see it progress.
Yes, I was there. It was a nice event, and I got a nice t-shirt to boot. Okay, our next meeting is May 14th at 9 a.m. Last call for any comments, anything going. Okay, so we'll stand adjourned till next meeting. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you.